The winds and the waves shall obey my will. Then he arose and rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a great calm. But the men marveled, saying, What manner of man is this, that even the winds and the sea obey him? Matthew 8:23-27. We all come to places at times where the sea of life is tempest-tossed, and the winds of adversity are mercilessly raging about us. We're all placed in circumstances at times when everything seems to go wrong, when everything seems to be against us, and when we fear lest we perish. But at such moments we should remember that the Christ is in the ship, no matter what the ship of life may be, no matter what the manner of men may be sailing in that ship, or what their purpose may be. Wherever man may be found sailing upon the sea of human existence, there the Christ will be found also. Wherever we may be or wherever we may go, the Christ is in the ship. For lo, I am with you always. And it is our privilege, under every circumstance, to awaken the Christ. When we do, he comes forth invariably, and the winds and waves will obey. Whenever we enter into that higher and more sublime state of being where we meet him face to face, the consciousness of the Christ within us is awakened. We are in the Christ state. We are in the presence of supreme power. We are at one with God. And upon us comes a beautiful calm. The winds and the waves in our own minds are stilled, and upon the great sea of thought within us the billows are tossing no more. The storm has ceased. The black clouds have disappeared. All is beautiful and still, and the peaceful waters seem radiant with joy as they glitter in the sunbeams from the smile of God. We have opened our minds and souls to the strong and peaceful presence from on high. Thus, we have placed ourselves in the beautiful calm, and when we are stilled, all that is about us will be stilled also. As man is in the within, so will his life be in the without. When he can still the storms of his own mind, he can also still the storms of adversity in his outer life. It matters not what is taking place in our own circumstances. All must change when we change. All must be stilled when we are stilled. And whenever we awaken the consciousness of the Christ within, upon us comes a beautiful calm. When we know that the Christ is within at all times, when we know that whenever we call upon the Christ to come forth, the winds and the waves will obey, and when we know that the very hour the Christ is awakened, everything in life will be stilled, harmony will come out of everything, peace will come out of everything, good will come out of everything, when we positively know this. Need we have any fear whatever concerning the future? Need we fear opposing circumstances or adversity? Need we fear any condition that might arise? Nothing can happen that need disturb us in the least. The Christ is always in the ship. We may call upon him at any time. He will never fail to come forth, and when he does, there will be a great calm. Peace will reign once more, and all will be well again. Those who do not know that the Christ is in the ship are living constantly in fear. They reason that almost anything might happen to place obstacles in their way, or that certain conditions might arise to upset everything they had undertaken to do, and the things they fear usually come upon them. But when they know that there is a power within that can be awakened at any time, a power that is greater than anything in the world, fear may be banished for all time. When this great truth is realized, we need never be concerned about the future anymore. An anxious thought may be banished forever. Whatever may happen in the future, there is a power within that can change anything as we may desire, and turn anything to good account as we may desire. We may thus live in the conviction that all things will work together for good, for greater and greater good, and we may know that this conviction is based upon nothing less than eternal truth. The Christ is always in the ship, always in every ship that may pass upon the sea of life, and he may seem to be asleep. We may not be aware of his presence within us. But our unconsciousness of His presence does not prove that He is asleep, or that He is never there. The Christ is never asleep. The only begotten Son of God that is within us all, within everything, that is the ruling power in every soul. The supreme I Am in every soul is never asleep. The statement that the Christ was asleep in the ship is metaphorical. It is not the Christ that is asleep, but our own consciousness of the Christ. When our own consciousness of the Christ is asleep, we are not aware of His presence, and He seems to be asleep to us. When we are not aware of this great spiritual power within us, we are unconscious of that power. We are asleep, so to speak, as far as the existence of that power is concerned, and therefore will never think of awakening that power. But when we have attained sufficient spiritual discernment to know the power of the Spirit in our own soul, we shall begin to call forth that power. From that moment, higher power will be with us, and we shall no longer be victims of the tempest-tossed sea. Whenever the billows begin to toss or the storms begin to rage, we may call forth the Christ. He will always be with us, and will always respond to the call. He will answer our prayer with His own presence, and in His presence all is beautiful and still. This same unconsciousness of the presence of the Christ within also explains the seeming loss of the soul. The soul is the Christ individualized, created in the image of God, and therefore can never be lost. The soul is coexistent with God, always with God, and that which is eternal with God can never be lost. But the personal man is sometimes so engulfed in materiality that all view of the soul is lost. The soul is always there within us, ever abiding in the shining glory of the kingdom of God within us. The soul is safe, always was safe, and always will be safe in the life eternal. But if we are living in materiality, we do not see the soul. We do not feel the soul. We are utterly unconscious of the soul, and therefore conclude that there is no soul. Or if we are sufficiently awakened to feel the soul, but not sufficiently developed in spiritual discernment to know the divine nature of the soul, we may conclude that the soul is weak and imperfect as the flesh, and that it may go down into pain, bondage, misery, at any time, now or in the future. And thus has arisen the seeming need of the doctrine of future salvation for the soul. Such a doctrine, however, is not based upon the spiritual conception of the soul, but was formed when we looked upon the soul through the confusion of materiality. The soul is never lost, never can be lost, and as you are the soul, you can never be lost. The soul is always safe with God, therefore you are always safe with God. Realize this truth, and you will find the soul. You will find that you are identical with the soul, and that all is well with the soul now as all is well with God now. To save the soul is not to save the soul, because the soul needs no salvation, but to restore the power of the soul as the supreme ruling power in your whole life. Enthrone the soul in every thought and action, and you save the soul, not from sin, because it is free from sin, but you save the soul from your own personal neglect. The power of the soul is no longer neglected, but is saved for actual use and the realization of health, freedom, and mastery throughout your entire being. Thus you gain emancipation for every element in your being, and that is the salvation we seek. We are saved in the true sense of the term when the divine power of the soul reigns so completely throughout the body and the mind that all the ills of life are completely banished from mind and body. We are saved in the true sense of the term when the body is filled with the power of health and wholeness, when the mind is illumined with the light of eternal truth, and when the soul is abiding forever in the splendor of the cosmic realms. And such a salvation is realized when we no longer ignore the soul, but place the soul upon the throne of being as complete master of everything that we may ever think or do or say. To enthrone the soul, the principle is to follow, not the desires or the tendencies of the person, but the supreme purpose of the spirit, and to depend absolutely upon the power of the soul in all things, knowing that the power of the soul can see you through no matter what your life, your work, or your purpose may be. The belief of the many is that whatever we may wish to accomplish, we must depend wholly upon ourselves, and that we must depend upon ourselves as far as our ability and power may go is very true, but it is not true that we should depend wholly upon ourselves. We can receive power and aid from sources that are above the personal self. And what is equally true, no one ever scaled the heights in life that did not depend constantly upon these higher sources. The best ideas, the noblest thoughts, and the greatest truths that have ever appeared in the world came to man when his mind was in the upper regions, in touch with the spirit sublime. And the power with which all great things have been wrought has come from the same source. Men and women who depend wholly upon themselves, their personal selves, are weaklings. They come and go without doing anything aside from sustaining existence. But men and women who depend upon supreme power as well as their own ability to work out their purpose in harmony with that power, invariably become giants in mind and soul. It is the deeds of such minds that become lights on the path to greater things. It is the lives of such souls that reveal to the race what true spiritual existence has in store. And it is the work of such men and women that has given us the light, the freedom, and the happiness that we now enjoy. You may live in absolute darkness today. You may not know where to turn. Your sky may be black and a raging storm may be almost upon you. You can see nothing but destruction as you have no idea what to do. You are about to give up and perish. But as this thought passes through your mind, you remember the last resort. You remember the great statement, "Call upon me and I will answer thee." You then call upon that power that should be sought first, but that men usually seek last when in trouble. You turn to the Christ that is asleep in the ship. You open your mind to light and power from above, and almost at once there is a rift in the cloud. You are in absolute darkness no more, and the threatening storm is beginning to break. You pass more completely into the Spirit of the Christ, and you realize the beautiful calm. The clouds are gone. You are in the light. You can see everything clearly, and you know what to do. You are now in touch with that upper region from which you may receive better ideas, greater thoughts, and more valuable truths than you ever received before. In consequence, you will find precisely what you may need in securing emancipation from external adversity, and in building those greater things that alone can satisfy the aspirations of the soul. The belief that the Christ within can still the winds and waves of every condition that we may meet in life and change every circumstance into one of calmness, harmony, and well-being is a truth that can be taken into every event of daily life, no matter what may come, no matter what the obstacle or the difficulty may be. There is something within us that is greater than anything in the world. The Christ is with us in the ship. We may call him at any time. He can still any storm, change any circumstance, and remove every obstacle that we shall ever meet. His power is not applicable to conditions of mind and soul alone, but to physical conditions and circumstances as well. There is nothing that will not respond to the ruling will of the Christ within, and there is no place in practical life where the power of this will may not be applied to the greatest advantage. He who lives in constant touch with supreme power is always in possession of the most power and he may apply this added power in body, mind, and soul. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. But this added strength does not simply appear in the spirit. It appears also in the mind and the body. Therefore, it is always profitable to be in touch with supreme power and to depend upon supreme power, whether our work be physical, mental, or spiritual. It is not wisdom to depend solely upon the lesser things of the person when we may constantly receive power and aid and inspiration from the greater things of the Spirit. All things are for man, and the use of all things should ever be his purpose, no matter what his work may be. We have found a perfect remedy for fear, because he who knows that the Christ is always in the ship will fear nothing. To him no ill can come whatever. Though the approaching storm may sweep everything before it, its fury will be dissipated into nothing when it comes to the ship where the Christ is awake. But the Christ is in every ship, and he will come forth in every ship and utterly put to naught the impending danger. Whatever our position in life may be, or whatever we may be called upon to do, when we know that the Christ is with us, we may proceed calmly, peacefully, and serenely, in the full conviction that nothing but good will come. We need fear nothing, because there will be nothing to fear. The turning of the tide may sometimes be delayed until the 11th hour, and even until the 59th minute of that hour, but the turn will come without fail. We may continue positively in that faith. I will not forsake thee or leave thee. This is the truth, and we can under every circumstance demonstrate this truth, providing we never fail to call the Christ. We must go to the Christ first. Then he will come to us and answer our prayer, whatever the prayer may be. We must place ourselves in touch with the supreme power first. Then that power will come to us. And when supreme power is with us, we have nothing to fear. When the power of the Supreme is on our side, all things will be on our side. And God will go with us the very moment we choose to go with God. When the day is calm, it is well. But if it is not calm, it is also well. It will soon become calm if you call upon the Christ. For the winds and the waves shall obey my will. If the future seems bright, you may rejoice, but if the future seems dark as the blackest night, you may also rejoice. There is a power within you that can put adversity to flight and turn misfortune and sorrow into the glory of the cloudless day. When all that is good is coming into your life, you may be grateful. But when all that is good is passing out of your life, you may also be grateful. The Christ that is within you can not only save your ship from every threatening storm and impending danger, but he can also guide your ship towards the shores of richer treasures and greater good than you ever knew before. Grieve not when in the midst of loss. Rejoice with great joy, and be grateful from the deepest depth of your heart. Call upon the Christ, and you will regain everything and more. There never was and never will be any real occasion for disappointment or tears. When the lesser disappears, turn to the greater. You will find the gates ajar, and you may enter at once into the pastures green. The power of that will that causes the winds and the waves to obey comes invariably from the depths of spiritual existence. It is the power of the Christ enthroned in the soul. And whoever will recognize and call forth the reigning Christ within will gain possession of such a will. But we can never gain such a will so long as we try to dominate the lives of others or try to forcefully control external circumstances or events. Nor can we gain such a will so long as we try to will with the outer mind. The real will comes from the great spiritual depths of being, and as it is coming forth, it causes the being of man to become deeply calm and enormously strong. The difference between the man of real power and the man of mere external force is readily discerned. When you meet the latter, you find a great deal of domineering effort expressed through the most superficial action. But you find the man himself weak and easily overcome by almost any adverse condition. When you meet the former, however, you will find yourself in the presence of a truly strong man, a man who is strong and alive all the way through to the very depths of his inexhaustible being, a man who is actually conscious of irresistible power, and you inwardly know that such a man cannot be moved by any power in the world. He has gained possession of that something that is greater than anything in the world, and wherever he may journey upon the sea of life, the winds and the waves must obey. To depend exclusively upon the personality of Jesus and that power of the Christ that manifested through him 20 centuries ago is to ignore the present power of the Christ within us. Thousands are doing this, and in consequence continue in sickness, trouble, and sorrow. To depend upon any personality, no matter how sacred or how highly developed, is to depend upon the outer form and ignore the interior spirit. Such a practice leads into materiality, away from spirituality, and materiality means bondage. To follow the Christ is not to worship the person of Jesus, but to follow absolutely the light and the spirit of the Christ in your own soul today. The power that can calm the waves on every tempest-tossed sea does not come through any external personality. Such a power can come only through the great spiritual depths of your own soul, or to state it differently, from those sublime spiritual heights within where the Christ reigns eternally. When we follow the Christ that is here today, the Christ that reigns in the spiritual kingdom within today, we shall steadily grow in spirituality, emancipating mind and body from every form of bondage and from every condition of materiality, until that freedom that comes from the truth divine has been realized in its greatest measure. Then we may also say, "My yoke is easy and my burden is light." Then we may also speak the great word, "Peace, be still," and to us shall come the beautiful calm. Rock of ages, truth divine, strong foundation ever mine. Safe, secure, I here remain, free from evil, sin, and pain. Living ever in the right, fixed on high with souls of light. On the rock of truth I stand, destiny at my command, filled with power from on high, boundless good forever nigh. Far above the world of wrong, safe with truth, so firm and strong. Every height in truth's domain I shall reach and thus obtain every wish within my heart, for no blessing can depart. All of good is ever mine, on the rock of truth divine. For I have overcome the world. These things I have spoken unto you, that in me ye may have peace. In the world ye have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. John 16:33. There are two distinct worlds open to man in his present state of existence. In one he finds tribulation, and the other he finds peace. The first is material, the other is spiritual, and it is man's privilege to choose which one he would have as his present place of abode. If he selects the material, he sacrifices everything that has real value in life. He secures a few fleeting pleasures and much pain. Not a single moment gives real satisfaction, and nothing that he can do produces the results expected. But when he selects the spiritual, he sacrifices nothing that is good. He secures all the joy that life can give. His pains are few, if any, and when they do come, they come to lift him higher. Every moment is rich, every hour is thoroughly worth living. And there are many periods of time when his soul is lifted to the supreme ecstasies of the highest heavens. Whatever he does, he builds wiser than he knew, and he not only receives everything expected, but more. Therefore, those who understand what the spiritual life holds in store may be of good cheer. Their sorrows and tribulations are over. Better days are at hand. The words of the Christ have prepared the way, and that way leads to peace. No matter what external conditions may be, no matter what circumstances we may be in now, we may be of good cheer. I have overcome the world, and in him we may live whenever we so desire. The power of the Christ can overcome anything and change anything, and that power is in us. Then why should we not rejoice, and rejoice in him always? There is something within us that is greater than things, and it is our privilege to claim the power of that something now. I have overcome the world now, and every soul may live in me now. That means emancipation now for all who will receive it. Freedom is not for some other world, but for the life we are living today. We are not required to live in tribulation at any time during present existence. The way to complete emancipation is before us at all times. I am the way. Whoever will transcend personal consciousness and enter into the consciousness of I am will enter that life that is not of this world, and he will gain that power that can overcome anything that may exist in this world. To enter the supreme life of Christ is to gain the supreme power of the Christ, and to steadily grow in the consciousness of that life and power is to rise out of every tribulation until complete emancipation has been gained. That supreme life is in store for us. It already exists in the supreme I am of our own being. This I am is the Son of God, the only begotten of God, the Christ in us. And the Christ that is in each one of us is one with each one of us. That is how I am in the Father, and ye in me. This supreme oneness wherein the soul is one with the Son, and the Son is one with the Father is real. It is not merely in thought or in feeling. It is not solely an abstract state of being. It is as real and as tangible as life itself, and every element that pertains to that oneness is as real and as tangible as life itself. I am the way, and you are that I am. You must be, or you could not be, one with the Father. If you are not that I am, you would be separated from God, and no soul can be separate from God and live. Claim your divine sonship. Claim your divine inheritance. Claim that supreme power that overcomes the world. It belongs to you. It is you. Know this truth, and this truth shall make you free. To believe that you are a mere weak human being is not to be in the Christ. When you live in the Christ, you are filled through and through with supreme power, and you know neither weakness nor tribulation anymore. This is evidence that you are in the Christ. When you live in him, you are stronger than any adversity that is in the world. You remain untouched, unmoved, and undisturbed no matter what may threaten in the world. You are in him, and in him you have found peace. You have entered the spiritual world, and I am the door to that world. You have risen to that supreme state of being where you can say, in the spirit of eternal truth, I am, and through the power of that truth you have overcome the world. The attitude of overcoming is usually thought of as being inseparably connected with resistance, and as being directly antagonistic in its action toward that which is to be overcome. Nearly every person, when trying to overcome anything, begins to resist, begins to antagonize, begins to work against that which is not desired. Accordingly, he does not succeed, because he must work in the opposite direction before his purpose can be fulfilled. The first principle in overcoming is to give no thought whatever to that which is not desired. The more completely we can forget that which we wish to overcome, the better. The second principle is to give our whole attention to that something which we know we shall realize when we have overcome. If a person is in adversity, he knows that when this adversity is overcome, certain, more desirable conditions will be realized. Then let him begin at once to give his whole attention to those desirable conditions. By giving his whole time, thought, and energy to the attainment of that which is desired, he will invariably overcome and rise out of that which is not desired. We overcome the wrong by turning completely away from the wrong and giving all our life and power to the greater realization of the right. This is the secret of overcoming. When we devote all the power of thought, all the power of soul, all the power of life to the constant attainment of greater and better things, we shall ascend perpetually in the scale of existence. This means perpetual growth, and in consequence the elimination of evil, because all evil is caused by retarded growth. The purpose of life is to move upward and onward forever. To live is to live more. But no person is actually living more unless he is living more every single moment. The moment he begins to live more, he begins to ascend. And when he begins to grow into the greater, he begins to grow out of the lesser. When he grows into the right, he grows out of the wrong. He gains freedom from that which is not desired by entering more fully into the life and the spirit of that which is desired. But the moment he ceases to live more, he retards his growth. He violates the purpose of his life, and instead of supplying more life, he supplies less life. His real nature, however, demands more and more life, and therefore demand and supply will at once become unequal. There will accordingly be a lack of something in his life, and every evil that man has ever met came originally from a lack of something. Real life demands the living of more and more life. But when man fails to live more and more, the natural demand in life will not be fully supplied. The lack of one or more things in human existence will be the result, and conditions of evil invariably follow. Real life is lived in the individuality, the soul, or the real man. And so long as we consciously live in the real man, or in the I am of being, we shall continue to live more and more. We shall thus realize the fullness of life constantly, and constantly grow into a larger measure of that fullness. Life will be full. There will be no lack of life, and no retarded growth in life. In consequence, there will be no evil in life. We shall have perfect freedom, and there will be nothing to overcome. Accordingly, we shall fully comply with the great statement, the true way to overcome is to so live that there is nothing to overcome. However, when we do not consciously live in the individuality or in the real man, but live consciously in the personality only, we are not in touch with the constantly ascending current of real life. We are not in touch with that greater measure of life that will enable us to live more and more life. A lack of life will at once be felt, and here we have the original cause of every ill, every wrong, and every undesirable condition that man can know. This is the real fall. Conscious living falling down from the living of unlimited life in the individuality to the living of limited life in the personality. But this fall did not take place only once, ages ago. It is taking place every day in nearly every mind, and is taking place many times a day in most minds. To be saved from this fall, which is the only fall, proceed to live in the spirit, in the soul, in the real life of the I am of being. Express the life more abundantly in the personality, but live in the individuality. By living consciously and constantly in the individuality, you will live in the life more abundant. You will live the limitless life, and what we live, we express. We express in the personal man whatever we live in the real man. And therefore, when we live the limitless life in the real man, we express the limitless in the personal man. Thus, the personality is ever filled with the life more abundant. There will be no lack of life anywhere in the being of man. And there can be no evil where there is no lack of life. To try to remove or overcome evil is nothing but wasted effort. Evil is not a thing, but a condition arising from a lack of life. When necessary life is supplied, there will be no further lack of life. And where there is no lack of life, there can be no evil. To antagonize evil, to resist evil, to work against evil, will not remove evil. Supply the life more abundant, and evil will disappear of itself. Evil is simply emptiness, and no place can be empty when every place is full. To supply the life more abundant, live in the soul, in the real man. Do not establish yourself in the personality. Establish yourself in the individuality and live in the source of life instead of the partial manifestation of life. This is the simple secret. Go up into more life and you overcome everything that is not desirable in life. Do not try to overcome anything. Simply begin to live more. Give no thought to evil. Never try to remove evil. Give all your thought to the attainment of the good, and direct all your effort towards the attainment of an ever-increasing measure of good. When you see evil, do not become indifferent. Proceed at once to add the good. When the good is on the increase, evil is on the decrease. This is invariably the law, and the good will begin to increase the moment we begin to live more. The same principle should be applied in every thought, action, or relation in human life. We should never emphasize or ever recognize that which is not desired. But that which is desired should be recognized constantly and be emphasized most positively at every opportunity. When we meet others, their imperfections and shortcomings should be overlooked, while their good qualities should be given special attention. When we think of ourselves, we should apply the same rule, and we should apply it universally in all physical, mental, and spiritual training. The child that is trained in this manner from birth will naturally become extraordinary. When all the power that a person may possess is employed in the building of greater things, there must be great results, even though the power originally possessed be limited. The average person, however, employs but a fraction of his power in the upbuilding process. The remainder is employed in resisting evil and adversity. The reason why we are not higher in the scale of life and not more perfectly developed in body, mind, and soul is because we have emphasized our imperfections and have failed to give our good qualities special attention. You give your life to that which you emphasize. Therefore, give no thought to weakness or imperfection. Give all your thought to those desirable qualities that you wish to build up. Your worthy qualities will soon become so strong that weakness can no longer exist in your nature. Build up what you want. That is how you overcome and remove what you do not want. The more fully we can concentrate the whole of attention upon that which we desire, the sooner it will be realized. And when that which is desired is realized, that which is not desired can exist no more. Therefore, give all your thought, all your power, all your life, and the whole of your attention to that which is desired. Do not try to remove the lesser, but work uninterruptedly for the greater. The lesser is left further and further in the rear as you approach the greater goal that lies before you. The process of overcoming is an ascending process, with the eye fixed upon the eternal mountaintops of spiritual supremacy. Give constant recognition to the very highest states of spiritual supremacy that you can possibly discern. and desire all the elements of your being to move perpetually towards those sublime states. You thus produce this ascending process. You will begin to grow to rise out of everything that you have wished to overcome. And when this ascending process has been placed in full, continuous action, there will be nothing further to overcome. The wrongs that we wish to overcome have been produced by retarded growth. But when we are ever rising into more and more life, growth will no longer be retarded, and in consequence there will be no further wrongs to overcome. It is therefore evident that if you are still meeting things to overcome, you have not learned to live more and more. You are still permitting yourself to fall down from the world of real life into the world of temporary conditions. You are still living in the body instead of manifesting in the body, and you are still following the confused desires of the personal man, when the only true desire can arise in the real man. To go up into the more life, into the limitless life of eternal being, is the remedy. Whenever you find yourself in any adverse condition, remember you will not come out of it until you grow out of it. You may antagonize adversity and cause it to disappear temporarily, but it will soon return in some other form. Nothing, therefore, is ever gained by such a method. Train yourself to grow out of that which is not good by constantly growing into the greater good. And we invariably grow into that which we think of the most. Think constantly of that which you desire, and you will grow into it. But your thought must be of the heart. It must be deep and strong and inspired by the invincible power of soul. Do not give personal force to your thought, but try to feel that every thought you think has soul, and know that every thought that has soul has the power to do whatever it was created to do. And in all your efforts to grow into the better, the greater, and the more beautiful, consider the lilies of the field. Grow like the flowers, and you will never fail. The flower resists nothing, antagonizes nothing, works against nothing. It gently comes up of its gross and earthly environment and grows on peacefully, silently, and serenely until it becomes an inspiration to all the world. Human life can do the same, much do the same, if we wish to realize the life beautiful and become conscious of the richness and glory of the spiritual heights. Spiritual consciousness never sleeps. Grief comes from the feeling of loss. Spiritual consciousness knows that there is no loss. Nothing can ever be lost. Whatever was, is, and evermore shall be. To spiritual consciousness, there are no tears. Not because such consciousness is cold or indifferent, for he who has entered spiritual consciousness loves with a higher, a truer, and far more tender love than he ever knew before. He who has entered spiritual consciousness knows that all is well, and where all is well there can be no tears. Spiritual consciousness feels the existence, the presence, and the unity of all things visible and invisible. To be consciously in the Spirit is to love all souls with the love of the Spirit, and he who loves with the Spirit is one with all souls, both in this realm and in realms beyond. He is conscious of the great white throng, those who are in the form and those who are in the higher form. His sublime love has given him a sublime vision, and through that vision he can see that nothing is lost, that all is well, and all that is well is eternal.